propositioned her for sex while driving her home in 2001. When she refused, she says, he brought up the disappearance of former intern Chandra Levy, who was, of course, killed in Washington that year, essentially, she claims, invoking the threat of murder. At that point, Moore says she got out of the car and ran away. We should point out that she was only 20 at the time and an intern in Conyers' office. Conyers, of course, the longest-serving member of Congress. He announced his resignation this week. In a minute, we've got some news about members of the Conyers family. But first, Melanie Sloan is one of a half dozen women who have accused the congressman of harassment, and she joins us tonight. Melanie, thanks for coming on.
It's nice to be here.
So you are one of the reasons that this story has come to light. Tell us how it happened.
After I told my story to the Washington Post and it appeared in the news, Courtney Morse reached out to me, wanted to talk about what had happened to her. She was considering whether or not to come forward, and I encouraged her to publicly tell her story.
So one of the reasons that I want to talk about this tonight, there are a lot of allegations flying around Congress and the rest of the country for that matter, and some of them seem true, some of them you don't really know. This seems to be in a different category because she is suggesting he was implying something very dark by invoking the name of a murdered intern during their exchange. Are we misreading this? She thought that he was implying something horrible.
She certainly thought it was possible. She was clearly very nervous by it and scared by the entire experience.
So if here you have a member of Congress, one of the most famous, now literally the longest serving, capable, she says, of implying murder, it's hard to believe that nobody knew that he was a lunatic, if this is true. That's lunatic behavior. And nobody suspected it? I don't understand how that could be.
Well, look, I wasn't there, so I don't know what happened. I do know that I've talked to Courtney, and I believe her when she tells me what happened and that she was quite terrified by it. She told other people at the time about the incident. So the statement speaks for itself. Conyers is a mercurial person, and I think often has said things that he doesn't necessarily mean. I doubt he was really threatening to kill her. That seems extremely unlikely. But clearly she was frightened, and for good reason.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of the point. This is different from, many of the allegations that we're hearing are of a familiar kind. People who are insensitive, boorish, predatory. They're awful, but they're kind of recognizable in the kind of scope of human behavior. But to say to a 20-year-old intern, to invoke a dead intern to an intern you're hitting on, suggests you're a psychopath.
Well, I don't think Congressman Conyers is a psychopath. I can't explain his statements. Again, I wasn't there, and this was a long time after I worked for him. So I will say that he is unusual in how he talks a lot of times, and sometimes there seem to be inconsistencies in things he'll say. So it's hard to envision exactly what happened there.
So you work for him, though. You consider him capable of this?
I don't consider him remotely capable of killing anybody. No,
of saying this.
No, I don't. I really don't know. I never heard him say anything remotely like this. So but I certainly am not challenging Courtney's experience or what she heard. I don't know.
Okay. It just seems like a big deal if he said something like this. A very big deal. Melanie Sloan, thank you.
Thanks.
I appreciate it. Staffers from Conyers' office say that for years there have been moments when it seemed like he had no idea where he was and who was around him. Sounds like a lot of fun. Meanwhile, Congressman Conyers has said that his preferred replacement would be his 27-year-old son, John Conyers III. He's got a lot of experience so far as a rap artist. You may be familiar with his song, My N-Words Turn Grams into Grands. He was also arrested earlier this year for stabbing his girlfriend, though the charges were later dropped. In addition to his career as a musician, he is a writer for the Huffington Post, needless to say. He's also a partner at some kind of hedge fund in Detroit and a multidiscipline consultant, in case you need more evidence that the financial economy, in some cases, is ridiculous. Mark Stein joins us tonight. Mark, so there's basically the headline here is a hedge fund manager is running for Congress in Detroit. How should we take this news?
Well, actually, the headline is there's a hedge fund in Detroit. That in itself is quite a staggering concept. I'd rather have a real-life House of Lords else than a hereditary
Well, exactly.
people's house. And I gather there's a great nephew in the Conyers family who wants to run against the son. So the Democrat primary here is going to be, John Conyers III, choice between John Conyers III, John Conyers IV, the 5th Duke of Conyers, and Caitlin Conyers, who used to be John Conyers V before he transitioned. That's going to be your choice in the Democrat primary.
So you're something of a historian of Congress. How many members of Congress through the years have, in their past experience, stabbed someone?
Well, I think to elect someone who has already, he claims, as Tom Jones did in the song Delilah, I think it was, I felt the knife in my hand, and she apparently was he says he didn't take the knife, she had the knife, and in attempting to wrest the knife from her, he wound up stabbing her. This doesn't seem to be the kind of candidate you're looking for if you're making a clean sweep. As Melanie just testified, she didn't think John Conyers Sr. was capable of killing someone, whereas this guy his son actually has been arrested for stabbing someone. That doesn't seem like an improvement, frankly. This is the Dean of the House. By the way, this is the Dean of the House.
Yes.
This isn't just some obscure creature. I have to say, Melanie has said that he called her into the office in his underpants, and his communications director said, "Oh, we all saw him in his underpants because he changed in his office." This guy has an office job. He doesn't have to put on doublet and hose and go on stage and do Hamlet. He doesn't have to climb into a tuxedo and walk out and sing "Can You Feel the Love Tonight?" Why is he taking his pants on and off in his office all day? These are very strange people.
Some of the many mysteries surrounding the Conyers office. We're going to be certain to return to this topic with you, Mark, because you're an expert on this. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Tucker.
Thank you. We have some breaking news tonight. Republican Congressman Trent Franks of Arizona is the third member of Congress to announce his resignation amid allegations of misconduct just this week. In a statement, Franks said that he never attempted to have sexual contact with any staffer, never touched anybody in his office, or tried to. But he admitted to having, quote, an uncomfortable conversation about surrogacy with two women who worked for him. The congressman was pushed to resign by the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. Rebecca Heinrichs was once an advisor to Congressman Franks, and she joins us now to help clear up this story. So from what you know, Rebecca, what exactly are the charges, not formal charges, what are the allegations that are causing Mr. Franks to resign?
The allegations are that Congressman Franks approached two staffers individually about the subject of surrogacy in his office. He talked about surrogacy. He and his wife have fertility problems, and so he had uncomfortable conversations. According to him, he asked them if they would ever consider being a surrogate. He never, according to him, put the question to them if they would be surrogates for him. It's an awkward conversation. It could make somebody feel uncomfortable, but to me, that certainly doesn't rise to the level of sexual harassment or some sort of sexual abuse. But that's what the claim is, and that's what he says. I worked for the congressman. I have remained in touch with him. We've worked on policy issues because I continue to do policy with think tanks, and I have never been made to feel uncomfortable being with the congressman. I have never seen any slightest bit of sexual harassment or intimidation. He has treated every single member that I've seen of his staff with dignity and respect. So this is incredibly startling to me, and frankly, I find it a tragedy. I find it a tragedy that he's feeling like he needs to resign over what we know about the allegations.
Well, he's being pushed to resign by Paul Ryan, apparently. Have you spoken to him since?
I have not.
So assuming, and this is a big assumption, but this is all there is to know, and sometimes there's more that we don't know, but this is what we do know. On the basis of this, do you think these are appropriate grounds for resignation?
Absolutely not. When you're a member of Congress, you're going to be working with staff on very difficult issues. issues of policy.
Right.
Congressman Franks, he is one of the most well-known pro-life members, and so he cares very, very deeply about the dignity of life. He was going through something incredibly hard. He was thinking through it ethically about surrogacy, and he was trying to go about it in a way that honored life of what would be his unborn child. And so he had an uncomfortable conversation. Is it weird? Yeah, I think it's weird. Might it make somebody uncomfortable? Sure. Should she have left? Yes, I hope she did. But are those grounds now for accusing the congressman of something so severe,
especially in this just whirlwind of accusations of legitimate sexual abuse?
Right.
It's sort of lumping him, with folks like Congressman Conyers, where there's a whole, slew of women who are making very serious allegations. So it's troubling. It's very troubling as his former staff and as somebody who continues to work with the congressman.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Well, Congressman John Conyers is not the only casualty of the recent stream of sexual harassment allegations. In an awesomely Washingtonian resignation announcement, disgraced Senator Al Franken of Minnesota called himself, quote, a champion of women, also lashed out at his political rivals, did not apologize once to anyone who accused him. Is the outrage over sexual harassment based on a genuine concern for the victims, or is something very cynical going on here? Philippe Reines served in Hillary Clinton's inner circle for many years. He was not impressed by New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand denouncing Bill Clinton the other day, and he joins us to assess everything that has happened. Philippe, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thank you, Tucker.
So, look, I'm not exactly sure what I think of everything around Senator Franken. I didn't like him as a senator. But I do know that a lot of the people denouncing him, particularly Senator Gillibrand of New York, are hypocrites. You made this point that she's a hypocrite. What was the response when you said that?
Well, let me preface this before getting into the politics of it, that obviously this behavior, whether it's Senator Franken or candidate Moore or Congressman Franks, Conyers, this has to be taken very seriously. When true, it's inappropriate and abhorrent.
Right. I agree.
With Senator Gillibrand, the point I was making, and I think continue to make, is she's not putting in context her rationale for who she calls for resignation and when. She, 2 weeks ago, called for Bill Clinton's resignation, or saying Bill Clinton should have resigned 2 decades ago. Didn't really explain why. She didn't say she regretted not speaking earlier or regret taking the Clintons' support or money, and then goes a few weeks without saying anything about Senator Franken until yesterday. Now, that's not to say her decision is wrong. She was joined by 29 other senators. But most people have been discussing this within a framework of, if someone does this, it's unacceptable and they should resign. It's unclear in the way she's been describing her actions what that rationale is.
I agree. And I'm also bothered, look, if one of your colleagues exhibits poor judgment or does something grotesque or indefensible, attack him. I get it. But when you call yourself a defender of all women under all circumstances, you had better defend all women under all circumstances. Earlier this year, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who was an activist against female genital mutilation, went up to the Senate and testified before a committee. She later wrote a piece in the New York Times describing how the female Democrats on that committee basically blew her off, ignored her, didn't ask a single question, were in effect hostile to her. I don't understand how, and they are specifically Heidi Heitkamp, Senator Harris of California, McCaskill of Missouri, Hassan of New Hampshire. How can you call yourself a defender of all women when you can't stand up against female genital mutilation? I'm confused by the inconsistency there.
Well, I'm not familiar with that event, but I will say you can't just say that all the women of the Senate, whether they're Republican or Democrat, are not attuned to allegations and concerns of women. That would be absurd to say. How they reacted in that case, I don't know. I don't know why, but I think what we're seeing now is everyone feeling around where exactly and how exactly to deal with these accusations.
Right.
You have Senator Franken. You showed a clip of what he was saying, and he's getting a lot of grief because he said, I'm resigning, but. And I think as much criticism as he's getting, it's showing the concern, and certainly among Democrats, about the hypocrisy. And he said it himself. I'm resigning. A month from now, Roy Moore is going to be taking my office. I'm resigning, but Donald Trump is still president. And there's no reckoning across the board. There's no standard being across the board.
Here's the standard. Look, we make a mistake when we assume that all abuse or harassment is sexual in nature. You can mistreat the women in your office without hitting on them or taking your clothes off in front of them. And I'm wondering if you think that all these senators who are attacking Franken, how many of them have thrown a stapler at a woman in their office or screamed at their female subordinates? I think that happens.
Man.
Or man. No, I'm just saying, if you hold yourself
it's not okay
up,
to throw a stapler at anybody.
It's certainly not. And yet that kind of behavior is very common up there. It's not sexual harassment. It's every bit as bad.
Look, the Congress, in a lot of ways, is not a typical work environment. Obviously, that has to change. What we've been seeing in the media, in finance, and other places, when someone has an accusation, they are looked into and quickly dismissed. The House, the Senate has got to, but it's a problem because, again, if you're Al Franken, you're like, what's going on here?
I agree.
And the problem is that the White House, to answer this, says, well, Donald Trump was elected, therefore it's over.
But that's
actually not true.
That's why congressional staff ought to be unionized. You're for unions, Democratic Party. There ought to be a staffers union on the Democratic side.
I worked on the Hill for a dozen years, and if anyone threw a stapler at me, I would have been the norm array of no staplers.
Talk to the shop steward. Thank you, Philippe.
Thank you for having me, Tucker.
Yet another Fox News alert on a night full. The Justice Department has launched a federal investigation into Planned Parenthood and its practices and the sale of fetal tissue. In a letter first obtained by Fox, reporters Brooke Singman and Jake Gibson, the Justice Department has formally requested unredacted documents from the Senate Judiciary Committee, the same panel that led the congressional probe into that organization, Planned Parenthood. The letter includes confirmation of an ongoing investigation into practices over there. We will keep you abreast of that investigation. Up next, exclusive new information about the Mueller probe's deep ties to the Democratic Party establishment. How did the people who defended one of Clinton's closest key aides wind up on the investigation into Donald Trump? We've got details. Stay tuned. This is a Fox News alert. Documents obtained exclusively by this show a few hours ago show that yet another key player in the Mueller independent counsel investigation has deep ties to the Democratic Party establishment. His name is Aaron Zebley. He is described in media reports as Mueller's right-hand man. Back in 2015, Zebley was a lawyer in private practice, and he represented Hillary Clinton IT staffer Justin Cooper. Cooper is the one who, personally put in the Secretary of State's private illegal server in her Chappaqua home. Congressional investigators sought to meet with Cooper, but they were stonewalled again and again by Zebley. Documents that we obtained today show the frustration of the Senate Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee in trying to get to Mr. Cooper because, and we're quoting now, Mr. Zebley telephoned Homeland Security Committee staff to inform them that Cooper had chosen to cancel the interview. In a letter to Cooper, congressional investigators complained that, quote, "We are troubled by your attorney," referring to Zebley, "his complete refusal to engage the committee in a discussion about how to further assuage your concerns." Take that in for a minute. A lawyer who played a defense role in the federal investigation into Hillary Clinton is now playing an offensive role in the federal investigation into President Trump. This is not the first time the Mueller probe has been dogged by questions of partisanship. FBI official Peter Strzok, we've been telling you about all week, was removed from that probe, demoted to the HR office over at the FBI, following the discovery of anti-Trump text messages and pro-Hillary text messages he had sent to his mistress, also an FBI employee. The investigative team over there includes the Mueller team, Kyle Freeney, he's an Obama donor, and Jeannie Rhee, who once represented the Clinton Foundation. To make matters even messier for the Justice Department, by the way, a senior official recently demoted amid an investigation into his contacts with the opposition research firm that produced the now discredited Trump dossier. Initially, Justice Department officials would not provide the reason for the official's demotion, but details were later turned over by Congressman Devin Nunes, who found the official had met with Christopher Steele, the former British spy and author of the dossier, back during the last campaign. Boy, it's a lot to digest. All of it comes as FBI Director Chris Wray was grilled by Congress this afternoon. Take a look at part of that.
I'd ask you again, surely you've examined the definition and the distinction between extreme carelessness and also extreme carelessness and the gross negligence that's within the statute. Are you really going to tell us today that you don't have an opinion on that distinction?
Gross negligence is the language in the statute, I believe. But I believe also that almost anybody who grabbed a thesaurus would say that gross negligence and extremely careless are pretty darn close to each other.
So if they're close to each other, then why change it? That's the question Steve King might have been getting to. Congressman Steve King of Iowa joins us on the set tonight. Congressman, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Tucker.
So before I ask you about your hearing today, this news that Aaron Zebley, who is working with former Director Mueller, head of this investigation, once was the personal lawyer of Hillary Clinton's IT guy and blocked him from coming to Congress. Why would Mueller hire an obvious Democratic partisan for a politically sensitive job like this?
You know, this whole thing screams of conflict of interest along the way. And the question was asked today of Director Wray, and we didn't get a lot of answers from him, but he's got a difficult tightrope he needs to walk here, too. But the question was asked, essentially, did you have a criteria that they needed to be pro-Clinton in order to be part of the team? Or did Director Mueller have that require that you need to be pro-Clinton? Or was it just happenstance, and were the only people he knew to tap into was I'll say the group of people who are Clinton partisans. But it looks like every single one of them is a Clinton partisan.
What's so grotesque and ironic about it is the whole point of the independent counsel statute is to reassure the public that the investigation is above politics. That's why it's taken out of the hands of the DOJ leadership. So you'd think that Mueller would go out of his way to make certain that no one on his team could be accused of partisanship, and yet almost all of them seem to have ties to the Democratic Party.
If not everyone. And then I thought Trey Gowdy made a really good point today when he said, if you're a jury of someone's peers, every day in America, people are called together, 12 peers sitting there, and they are forbidden from even deliberating on the evidence in front of them until the last evidence is in, and then they get their jury instructions, then they go back into the room and deliberate. But in this case, we've got decisions coming out. We've got Comey deciding before he issued the statement in July 5th of a year ago, July 5th, the conclusion that was going to come with the investigation of Hillary Clinton. Another thing that I brought up to Christopher Wray today is that the testimony that we have from Comey, from Loretta Lynch, is each of them appointed 3 members, 3 of FBI, 3 of DOJ, to interview Hillary Clinton, to investigate in the, quote, matter, which we know was an investigation. But there's no audio tape of that investigation. There's no video of that. There is no transcript. There are only the notes of the investigators who, and that's essentially proprietary. So the advice that Comey gave was not based upon any text of anything or any evidence of anything. It was just the briefing of the 3 agents that we'd appointed.
Let me just bottom line it. Would any normal American, you or me, have been treated in this way by the FBI?
I don't know. Not on the favoritism side. They wouldn't have been. But I'd ask also this question. It was if Michael Flynn can be guilty of lying to the FBI, how would the FBI know if Hillary Clinton lied to them if they don't have any kind of tape or video or anything?
Because they didn't want to know. Congressman, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Tucker.
Dramatic new footage you'll see right here of the devastating fire in Southern California. A live report straight ahead. It is bad. We have a Fox News alert for you. 4 major wildfires burning around the city of Los Angeles and surrounding areas. Fox News' Adam Housley is in Ventura County, California, right near the center of it. Adam?
Yeah, Tucker, as they made headway on some of those fires, including here in Ventura County, there's actually 2 new fires now that have started down near San Diego. First of all, I can give you a live look tonight what it looks like in Ventura County as our helicopter is up from our local affiliate here in Southern California, showing some of the flames. They're out in more of the wildland area now. They stopped this fire on its way towards a town called Carpinteria, which has about 13,000 people, but they made good headway today in pretty much stopping the fire in that direction. The winds, which were forecasted here, did not come as strong and as long as expected last night into today, but there's still a red flag warning here in Southern California until the middle of Saturday, so there's still the chance that those Santa Ana winds would stoke these fires and began this whole miserable week back on Monday night. There's still that chance they could come back, but really right now, Tucker, the idea is to knock these fires down as quickly as they can and hopefully get some sort of angle on those fires burning in San Diego, Tucker.
Adam Housley from Southern California, thank you. A congressional stalemate over illegal immigrant dreamers could lead to a government shutdown just days before Christmas. Is it worth it, is the question with all the things going on in this country. Attorney and columnist Raul Reyes thinks so. He joins us tonight. Raul, thanks for coming on.
Hey there.
So that's the key question. I don't think anybody who's looked carefully at this thinks all the dreamers are bad. Or, by the way, anyone who's honest thinks that they're all physicians. They're people, and they're in a tough spot. I get it. But you got over 60,000 Americans died last year of drug ODs. The country, the middle class, is shrinking, both in size and its life expectancy. Half the country, according to a recent study, can't come up with $400 on a day's notice. So there are a lot of problems in this country. Why would Democrats in Congress put illegal aliens at the very top, giving amnesty to a group of people at the very top of their list of priorities? I don't understand that.
Well, you know, I'm not a Democratic strategist, but I think my understanding is that Democrats are looking at the mood of the country. For example, last month we saw a poll from Fox News that said 86% of Americans favor letting these dreamers stay here, compared to only 12% who favored deporting them. And then just today we had a poll from CBS News saying it was 84% of Americans want to let them stay, versus, and including 74% of Republicans who want to let them stay. So my sense is that Democrats say, well, this is what people want. I personally honestly don't think that it's worth anything. I gotta call BS on that.
I mean, I think the numbers you just read are, probably true, but they don't.
Fox News poll, right?
Yeah, but they don't reflect the priority that people give to it. If you ask people, what are the top priorities in this country? What's wrong and what should we fix first? Giving amnesty to a bunch of people who are here illegally is not even close to the top. So why would you shut down the government unless people who came here illegally get citizenship? Jump in front of everyone else around the world waiting in line to get citizenship. Give it to these people. Why would that be the top priority?
Right. Well, in fact, I don't think most Americans think it is a top priority. I guess I would say two things. Number one, remember, DACA is not amnesty because it's a temporary grant. It's not legal status. It's only temporary lawful presence.
Right. No, but it's amnesty. I mean, and it is the Democrats' top priority because they're shutting down the government, they say, if they don't get it.
So maybe we have a disagreement over that terminology around DACA.
If you're shutting down the government over it, I think it's probably a top priority.
No, but to your larger point about is it worth it shutting down the government, I personally, I think no. But look at it this way. If I were a conservative, I would be very concerned if this did proceed to a government impasse for two reasons. Number one, Republicans control the White House, House of Representatives, and the Senate. So they are likely to be blamed, even if it is not their fault.
I mean, whatever. So I don't understand the politics or care about them. I just want to know what's good. Hold on. I want to know what's good for the country. So we all agree that the economy is becoming less labor intensive. And we're moving to the next stage. It's a digital economy. So the majority of dreamers are now adults. And yet the majority of them, according to government statistics, don't have high school degrees, even though they're adults. So why should I, as an American, thinking about our economy, the new economy, why should I be excited about giving permanent residency or citizenship to a bunch of people who don't have high school degrees? Why would I want that?
Well, I think it's because some of those statistics are correct. It's about 44%, I believe, of the dreamers have a high school diploma. But then we have another 18% who are in college. We have 15% who have the college degree, and then we have some others who are aged out. So we have dreamers who are at all different levels.
No, but those numbers are way below native numbers of native-born Americans. I mean, these are way less educated than your average American. Why is that good for us?
It's good for us, number one, like I said, because it's what the American people want, but most importantly, because it's the law. President Obama created through his executive action this deferred action program, which is, I understand, of course, very controversial to a lot of people. However, the Congress gave deferred action grantees, they gave them the work permit. So our Congress decided that it's okay for people with deferred action to work. I can understand why some people might say, why are they able to get jobs or compete with us?
Yeah, some people might say that. We're out of time, but I am saying that. You're absolutely right.
Exactly. So the answer to that lies with Congress. Congress could change the definition of deferred action, but so far
I got to cut you off, Raul. Thank you, though, for joining us. Up next, a Minnesota mayor went off when someone suggested that not everybody has white privilege.
God damn it, Gina. I'm passionate about this. I'm so passionate about hearing all sides of the story. And for you to disregard the fact that white privilege exists
The woman on the other side of that tirade, Council Member Gina Bauman, is here next. We'll ask her, how privileged are you? Well, the mayor of New Brighton, Minnesota, had a psychic break on camera the other night. She broke down in tears and was shaking after a city council member suggested that not every white person is the beneficiary of something called white privilege. Take a look.
If you don't understand white privilege, then you are not representing those people. You're not willing to listen to them. And what you have just said is the most racist.
Excuse me? Don't you ever accuse me of that.
White privilege exists, and it is something that we need to accept in this country. You're interrupting me, and by golly, I'm running this meeting.
We're on camera, and you're accusing me of something pretty big here. It's unacceptable because you have no case.
You're out of order. You're out of order.
Gina Bauman was the council member who was yelled at in that video, and she joins us tonight. Gina, Minnesota is such a nice state. You notice that everyone else in the video was sitting there politely as it goes on. So you were accused of having something called white privilege. You denied having that, whatever it is, and the mayor called you a racist and started crying. So let's just start with the facts. Are you privileged? Did you grow up privileged, like serious privilege, like Oprah-level privilege? Were you that privileged growing up?
No, I wasn't. I grew up in an Italian neighborhood for most of my childhood, and we were not privileged. They were working hard, and where we actually helped each other, we looked to your neighbors, your church, your friends and family, and we were not privileged. I did not grow up wealthy.
Right. So when you said that, I understood you to try to explain that, and then the mayor lost control and started yelling at you and started crying. What do you think about that answer drove her to tears of rage?
I think it's not her answer. So if it's not her definition or her answer, then that's why she kind of throws a fit. But I personally believe that it kind of started when the other council member began saying everybody has white privilege if you're white. And I believe that not to be true.
Right, that you should treat people
I don't think privilege has a color.
Yeah, well, that's obviously true. And you should treat people as individuals, not as interchangeable members of racial groups. So her behavior suggested someone who, needs help. Do you think she's going to get that help?
No. If you actually know her,
yes,
that's a pretty common. That's very common for her to react that way. If you don't agree with her, it's not unusual, and she does get it unhinged quite often.
Huh?
If you don't agree with her.
Is this known to voters in Minnesota?
In our city, it's known to some, but really not. In local politics, it's kind of difficult to get more people engaged.
Yeah, well, we're
so
hoping to change that. I'm hoping to let voters in your town know. Gina, thank you very much for coming on tonight.
Yeah. Thank you, Tucker.
Thank you. Do you know the news better than the professional news experts? Final Exam is up next, and you'll find out. For Final Exam, best part of the week, 2 contestants and certified news experts pitted against one another to determine which has been paying closer attention to the news. We can't overstate. These are people who are paid to watch the news. Joining us this week, Fox News Tonight anchor Shannon Bream, who remains undefeated in several, maybe 4 or 5 news quizzes, and a newcomer, Fox News correspondent Jillian Turner, whom we are proud to call a colleague all of a sudden. Great to see you both.
Yeah. Do I need to thank you guys so much?
Do I need to point out my disadvantage, which is that I've only been a correspondent for 2 days?
Yes, listen, I feel like he's warning us that he's going to make us look stupid tonight because he's like, keep in mind, these people are paid to watch.
Well, that is true. That is true. And we're thinking you can be the giant slayer here. We're going to find out. Here are the rules. Obviously, Shannon knows them well. Hands on the buzzer. I ask the questions. The first one to buzz in gets to answer. You have to wait until I finish asking the question in order to buzz in. Each correct answer worth 1 point. If you get it wrong, you lose a point. Best of 5 wins. Winner gets the fabled mouth-breathing golden retriever mug. A real favorite.
Shannon has a whole cupboard of them.
She does. She's got
Listen,
a whole.
Like every time you have coffee.
Right, when the good china, when people come over, these are the cups that we
The
bring out.
mouth-breather mug.
We do.
It's perfect. All right, you ready?
Well, one more question.
Yes.
If someone gets the answer wrong, does the other contestant get a chance?
No, we mock you and move on.
All right.
But there is a kind of moral penalty for it. Okay, question 1. Or an easy one to start. Some surprising news concerning the Olympics this week. Which country has been banned from competing in the 2018 Winter Olympics in South Korea because of doping in previous games? Oh, Jillian Turner.
Yes. Russia?
Russia is the answer. Go to the tape. Is Russia correct?
Russia will be banned from the upcoming Winter Olympics. Yep, you heard it right. The International Olympic Committee punishing the country for a massive doping scandal at the Sochi Games. Athletes who can prove they are clean, they're invited to compete, but they'll have to compete under a neutral flag.
Russia, says Jillian. I don't know, but Pete agrees.
I don't know.
You were correct.
Pete said it must be true.
It's absolutely true. Question 2. Ex-49ers player Colin Kaepernick was just presented with the coveted Muhammad Ali Legacy Award during a Sports Illustrated Sports Awards ceremony. Which famous person, a singer, presented him with that award, saying, quote, Kaepernick has a selfless heart? Shannon Bream. Beyonce, says Shannon Bream. To the tape we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so proud and humbled to present the Muhammad Ali Legacy Award to Colin Kaepernick.
I accept this award knowing that the legacy of Muhammad Ali is that of a champion of the people.
Humbled. Do you believe she was actually humbled? Oh, that's not the question. The question was Beyonce.
I like her
and
earrings.
You're correct. I like her earrings.
I like her earrings.
Hashtag humbled.
Hashtag humbled. You always find a positive angle.
I try to see the sunny side of life.
Sorry to interrupt, Shannon. I was going to say I'm very disappointed because normally I'm very up on pop culture.
I thought you'd.
I don't know how that one
But
slipped.
part of it is reaction time.
Just
She's
one.
cat-like in her reflex.
No, look, listen, she proved that buzzer works because last week everybody was like, Peter Ducey's buzzer didn't work. It works.
I watched that. He was trying.
That's why we haven't brought him back. Question 3. New research found that eating a certain type of fatty, indulgent food every day can, in fact, lower the risk of heart disease. The question, which food is it? Here's a hint. Greatest food in the world. Fatty food. Which fatty food? Think of it this way. European countries, healthy people, eating a lot of this food. That's the last hint. You can melt it. Shannon Bream.
Cheese?
Cheese, says Shannon Bream. To the tape we go.
Your new study suggests that a little cheese a day could keep the doctor away. A recent analysis of over 200,000 people found that those who ate cheese daily had a 14% lower risk of developing heart disease and were, bring on the brie.
It's totally true. That's why you never see unhealthy pizza eaters. Have you ever noticed that?
I've seen some unhealthy.
Yeah, I have too.
Little pizza joke. But cheese is great, I will say.
Cheese is.
As a non-physician. Okay, next question. A member of Donald Trump's cabinet set the internet on fire this week when photographs of his trip to Saudi Arabia went viral. Who was it? Trump cabinet, Saudi Arabia, viral photographs of a totally restrained G-rated kind, but still interesting. Saudi Arabia. Who would
Secretary
be going?
Tillerson there?
Is that your guess?
Do I need to hit the buzzer?
It's a buzzer. Is Secretary Tillerson your guess?
He's there, right?
That's what I think.
We should know that. I think he's
Secretary Tillerson. Is it Secretary Tillerson?
Rick Perry, he mixed business with pleasure here. He posed for a series of pictures during his trip to Saudi Arabia, holding a falcon, toes in the sand there.
Rick Perry.
Rick Perry.
No, he was over there.
I've been filling out administrative paperwork for 3 days. So this is like
no
the worst possible week for me to be on the show.
I have no
I'm just putting that caveat out
Love
there.
that. That's at least you're not blaming the equipment. That's good.
Right, that's a step up from Ducey.
Look, I couldn't beat Shannon. Final question.
Shortest serving correspondent of all time.
You know, but it's been a glorious, if brief, reign. This one's about Christmas movies, old ones. Now, liberal commentators are calling this classic Christmas movie racist because it encourages, they say, bullying, domestic abuse, and sexism. Which movie are they talking about?
Where have I been?
Okay, the third stumper in a row. I'll give you one
Ask me about
hint.
Jerusalem.
This is the least offensive movie ever made. And it's now racist.
Is it like a recent or an old movie?
On the other hand, it's animated.
Oh.
And it's not The Grinch. It's about an animal.
I made a Christmas movie about an animal?
Yes.
How old?
Santa loves him.
Oh. We are the worst. I don't know what happened to us this week, but I'm going to say Rudolph.
You're
just
saying
like this.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is racist? Shannon, you...
No, I'm not saying that.
Let's see if the tape agrees.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is racist.
Both getting last place.
Huffington Post criticizing this classic holiday film using comments from the movie's audience. Those critics claim it shows a teacher encouraging bullying, an abusive father, and sexism against Rudolph's mother.
Is the Huffington Post a real publication, or is it a parody designed to discredit progressives?
Well, and also, if we're talking about, you know, like anti-women, you know, domestic violence stuff with reindeer.
Yeah.
What about Bambi? The mother died. The mother got shot.
On the next show. Thank you both, Shannon. Your reign remains in place. Another
I'm going to have the
coveted
complete
mouth-breathing
set.
mother.
Anytime you come
Jillian,
over
you
for
did
dinner.
great. You did better than any other competitor against
Yes, this
Shannon
is
Breen,
true.
the Juggernaut.
And guys, I answered one question.
Yeah, well, you know.
But correctly.
You do better than others.
But correctly.
That's it for this week's Final Exam. Pay attention to the news all week. You can play along next week, next Thursday, right here. We'll see you then. Finally, some great news tonight. We'd like to welcome into the